Welcome back to the deep dive. We're diving into some Canadian politics this time, specifically the Liberal leadership race.
Hmm.
You sent over some analysis and commentary from a Canadian politics YouTube channel, so let's dive in and see what we can find.
Yeah, this will be interesting for sure. It's a pretty crazy time for Canadian politics right now, especially with how fast everything's happening.
Yeah, that's what caught my eye too. Everything's happening so fast.
Yeah. So Trudeau's resignation is official right. March 9th is his last day. But get this, the new leader has to be chosen before that. And potential candidates only have until January 23rd to declare if they're running.
Whoa, okay, so that's barely any time to decide.
Right. Like, I can't imagine being in their shoes right now.
Yeah, talk about a pressure cooker.
Totally.
And then on top of that, they changed all the rules for this leadership vote.
Oh, yeah. The Liberals decided to shake things up.
Yeah, what was that all about?
Well, it seems like they're trying to be more like the Conservatives and the NDP and how they choose their leaders. So, one big change is the entry fee. It's $350,000 now.
What? $350,000?
Yeah, that's up from $75,000.
That's a huge jump.
Yeah, it's a pretty serious amount of money, like right out of the gate.
Yeah, it makes you wonder who they're trying to weed out with that. Like, can you even run if you're not already some kind of political rock star?
Right. It's definitely a statement.
It sure is. And it's not just the money. Didn't they also change who can actually vote in this thing?
Yeah, they did. They actually set the minimum voting age to 14.
14, that's pretty young.
Yeah, it's definitely sparked some debate.
Yeah, bad. Like, are 14-year-olds even following politics that closely?
I mean, some are for sure, but it's a big responsibility. The other requirements are that you have to be a Canadian citizen, a permanent resident, or have status under the Indian Act. And obviously, you can't be a member of another federal party if you want to vote.
Okay, makes sense. So it's kind of a balancing act, right? Trying to get more people involved while also making sure things are fair and square.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, they're worried about things like foreign interference, which is a legitimate concern these days.
Yeah, the source material actually mentioned something called sabotage voting, which sounds kind of scary, to be honest.
Yeah, I mean, it is kind of unsettling. Like, it really makes you think about what motivates people to get involved in politics.
Right. Like, is it about making things better or just messing things up for other people?
Yeah, it's a tough question. It really highlights how complex this whole idea of civic duty is and what it means to be a responsible citizen.
Okay, so we've got this crazy timeline, some pretty controversial rule changes, and then you've got people potentially trying to game the system.
Mm.
So with all of that going on, who are the big players we should be watching?
So at the time this news segment came out, there were only two official candidates, Chandra Arya and Frank Viss, both Liberal MPs. But there are a lot of rumors flying around about some bigger names who might be considering a run.
Oh, yeah, like who? Spill the tea.
Well, the source mentioned Chrystia Freeland, Mark Carney, Melanie Joly, Francois-Philippe Champagne, Anita Anand, even Christy Clark.
Wow, that's a pretty impressive list.
Yeah.
So basically everyone's waiting to see who else jumps in the ring before making their move.
Right. Like, this news segment came out before anyone else had officially declared, so there's still a lot of suspense.
It's like everyone's playing a game of political chicken.
Yeah.
Like, who's going to swerve first?
It's definitely a strategic game. Do you declare early and try to build momentum, or do you wait till the last minute to make a big splash?
Risky either way.
For sure.
And then there's this other wrinkle to the whole thing. Trudeau resigning right before a potential election. So we could end up with an interim leader during a federal election.
That's right. It could happen. And honestly, I'm not even sure Canada's ever seen that before. Like, I don't know if any major party's ever gone into an election with an interim leader, let alone the governing party.
Whoa. That's a pretty big deal. Like, I'm definitely going to be following this closely.
It's a huge deal. It could change everything for the Liberals and for Canada as a whole.
Absolutely. This is definitely one for the history books.
It's definitely a situation to watch for sure. It really could shake things up for the Liberals and for the whole country.
I mean, it's not every day the prime minister just up and resigns before an election.
Exactly. It makes the whole leadership race even more intense.
Yeah, so we were talking about the big names
Yeah.
who might run right.
Yeah. Freeland, Carney, all those folks.
Right. Like, what are the pros and cons of jumping in early versus waiting till the last minute?
Well, if you declare early, you can start building momentum right away. Get people on your side, start fundraising. You can try to become the front runner early on.
Oh, I see. Kind of like claiming your territory early on.
Exactly. It can put pressure on the other candidates too.
Makes sense. But wouldn't waiting create more excitement, like a big dramatic entrance?
Oh, yeah. There's definitely a strategy to that. You could make it seem like you're the one who's going to come in and save the day.
Or like You're so confident you don't need as much time to campaign as everyone else.
Right. That could appeal to some voters for sure.
But it seems pretty risky, too. Like you're missing out on all that time to connect with people.
Yeah, there's definitely risks. You might not have enough time to raise money or really get your message out there.
So it's like a high-stakes gamble.
Yeah, basically.
So what do you think it means that none of those big names had officially declared at the time of this news segment?
Well, it probably means they're being super strategic, analyzing the situation, waiting to see what everyone else does. Maybe they're also trying to figure out what voters are really looking for right now.
Yeah, I'm like, is it time for a radical change? Or do people want someone who's more of a known quantity?
It's like a giant game of chess.
Except with the future of the country at stake. No pressure or anything.
Right.
Okay, so let's go back to this whole thing about Trudeau stepping down right before an election.
Okay.
Could that actually backfire on the Liberals?
Potentially, yeah.
Like, how so?
Well, some voters might see it as a sign that the party's unstable or that they don't have a clear plan for the future.
I can see that. Like, why should I vote for a party that doesn't even know who their leader is going to be?
Right. It could make people hesitant to vote liberal.
But couldn't it also have the opposite effect? Like, maybe some voters are excited about the possibility of new leadership, a fresh start?
It's definitely possible. Like maybe people are tired of the same old faces and they want to see someone new step up.
So it's like a double-edged sword.
Yeah, exactly. It could either energize the party or totally backfire. It's hard to say for sure.
The source material even said that this whole thing could be the final act in the Gong Show that's been going on with the Liberals for the last decade or so.
That's a pretty harsh assessment.
Yeah, it's not exactly a glowing review, is it?
No, but you can't deny there have been some, shall we say, interesting moments.
To put it mildly.
And then there's the whole prorogation controversy that's still hanging over everything.
Oh yeah, people are not going to forget about that anytime soon.
Nope. And the source even talked about this hypothetical scenario where the prorogation gets reversed, the government collapses, and then boom, an election is called.
Which would mean Trudeau has to run as leader, resign right before the election, and then hand everything over to whoever wins the leadership race, who would then have to try to win the election.
Exactly. Like, talk about a chaotic situation.
Wow. That's a whole lot of what ifs. But it definitely makes you think, like, this whole thing is unprecedented territory for Canadian politics.
For sure. And it really highlights how much is at stake in this leadership race. Like, the future of the party, the direction of the country, it's all on the line.
Okay, so to recap, we have a tight timeline, controversial rule changes, a whole bunch of potential candidates, and a political situation that's unlike anything we've ever seen before.
It's going to be a wild ride.
It definitely sounds like it. So for our listener, what are the key things they should be paying attention to as this whole thing plays out?
First of all, keep in mind that everything's happening really fast. Like we said, January 23rd is the deadline for candidates to declare. So things are going to start heating up really soon.
Buckle up, folks.
And second, pay attention to how these new rules actually play out. Will that huge entry fee actually discourage less serious candidates? Will the changes to voting prevent foreign interference? Or will it create a whole bunch of new problems?
Yeah, good point. Like unintended consequences and all that.
Exactly. And finally, don't lose sight of the big picture. This isn't just about choosing a new leader for the Liberal Party. It's about the future of the party itself and what role it's going to play in shaping Canadian politics.
Will they come out of this stronger, or will it all fall apart?
That's the million-dollar question. Only time will tell.
So much to think about. We've only just scratched the surface here. Is there anything else our listeners should be reflecting on as they process all of this?
Yeah, I think it's important to think about the role of young people in politics. Like, that decision to lower the voting age to 14, that's definitely going to be a hot topic.
Yeah, for sure. Like, are 14-year-olds mature enough to make informed decisions about politics?
Yeah.
And what about the potential for influence from their parents or other adults?
Right. It's a tricky issue. And then there's the whole issue of foreign interference in elections. Like, that's a big reason why the Liberals changed the rules about who can vote.
Yeah, it's not just a liberal problem either. It's something that all the parties need to be thinking about. Like,
Yeah.
how do we protect our democracy from outside influence?
It's a big question, and there's no easy answers, but it's a conversation we need to be having, especially with everything going on in the world right now.
Absolutely. Okay, so we've covered a lot of ground here. Any final words of wisdom for our listeners before we wrap up this part?
Just remember to be critical, to form your own opinions, and to get involved in the political process in whatever way you can, whether that's voting, volunteering, or just having conversations with people you disagree with.
Love that.